Ladies and gentlemen, live from the nation's capital, it's yours truly, the exceptional one, Ken McClinton. You are listening to New Day Black and Red. Unfortunately, the underground professor will not be with us this evening, not feeling well at all. I ask right now that you pray for him, lift him up in your prayers. Our great hope is that he recovers and is well. God give him his health. We need it. Lord Jesus, I thank you so much for this opportunity to go before the masses of people who have tuned in from around the world. We certainly are not ashamed of the good news of conservatism, but it is the power of liberation. First to the Republican and then the Socialist. Mary Brockman, my bouncer, is in the Euro Pacific Bank Limited TECN chat room tonight for New Day Black and Red. You can pile in right now at theexceptionalconservativeshow.com. All you got to do is click on when you get there, TECS. It'll take you directly there. You can listen to us via Ustream this evening, live stream this evening. Also, SHR Media Live, High Plains Pundit Media Live, hppundit.com, that is live. And as well, Red Nation Rising. You can hear us on the record at 2 a.m. on the Liberty Channel. Definitely make that your next place of stay. Tonight, as I cruise alone on New Day Black and Red, we're going to focus on America and Israel. We have a lot of people who have not even read the document from the UN. But ladies and gentlemen, I assure you, after reading it, you will be as highly disappointed and, quite frankly, opposed to the actions of not only John Kerry in a speech yesterday, which was anti-Zionistic, and certainly, in some cases, some people may take it to an extreme of anti-Semitic, basically inferring that you cannot be a Jew and a Democrat. You can be a Muslim, but you can't be a Jew. We'll talk about that. And I want to give y'all a little bit of history as we kick this funk this evening on New Day Black and Red. I want to give you a little history on Israel, especially to my down low audience this particular evening. Because, quite frankly, a lot of them on the down low don't really know the history. All they know is what everyone has told them, and they're not going to take the time to do the research necessary to liberate themselves from the confines of ignorance, which are actual opportunities for hate. When you liberate your mindset, when you understand the history, when you go back further than what so-and-so told you, you might understand why there is such angst and disharmony in this country. There is a concern that this nation is moving steadfastly, quickly, to making Palestine, quote unquote, an imaginary term brought out of the 7th century Greek period, BC, by the Romans as well, basically as a way of referring to the jihadist Philistines, the warring radicals who meant only harm and danger to those who traveled throughout the fine land of Israel. If you don't study to show yourself approved, you will be whipsawed back and forth by individuals that want to take advantage of your ignorance. President Barack Hussein Obama wants to take advantage of your ignorance. He wants to make you a hater of Israel. And I will go as far as to say that he doesn't want a 2-state solution. He doesn't want a 3-state solution. He doesn't want a 4-state solution. He wants a 1-state solution. And it's Palestine, under the auspices of not the PLO and not even Hamas, but the Muslim Brotherhood. We'll talk about all of this tonight as we go forward. There'll be a lot of Bible involved in this. So if you're offended by the word of God, this is your opportunity to turn on Sports Center and watch female volleyball. That's if you're interested in that. But otherwise, sit back, relax, get your pen and paper out. We're going to rock and roll tonight, and we're going to get a better understanding as to why we should all be quite flippant in our hostility towards this administration and what it did on the United Nations floor. I want y'all to remember now, the United Nations does not rule the U.S. unless we let them. For those of you who are following along at home, you know how we kick this jam straight on off. First, before I go, I want to thank Jackie Benson of NBC4 News here in Washington, D.C. We are modestly opposed in politics, but certainly we are aggregate in our desire to see justice prevail in Washington, D.C. And I want to thank her tonight for coming by the home, coming by the crib where Mrs. Biggs and I sat through an interview. And hopefully I'll be able to put that out over the weekend. Whenever they put that story out, I'll let you all know. But the bottom line is what's happening to the women of Washington, D.C., what's happening to the men of Washington, D.C., and the children is unacceptable. And it's because we have a very progressive council that wishes to give credence to the idea that somehow the criminal is always in the right and the victim is always in the wrong. The mayoral or executive who doesn't make unresolved homicides and missing persons a priority in her public safety pursuits, and certainly I would go dare say the judges and judicial system, as well as the federal government here in Washington, D.C., that has allowed CSOSA to become the lobbying agency for the criminal. So right now, everyone in Washington, D.C. knows you can get away with murder. We need to change that. And Jackie Benson, thank you for helping me along that way. Now, for those of you who sat through that, I want you all to look behind. On those who are watching via Ustream right now can see the flags behind me. Those who are watching via live stream, forgive me, can see the big one right over here. Let the kids lead us in, of course, the Pledge of Allegiance. Put your right hand over your heart. Woo! That's what I'm talking about, people. If we would just get our children back in the habit of not telling you what their rights are, but pledging allegiance to the nation that observes their rights, we would be such a better off society, I would dare say. You're listening tonight to New Day Black and Red live from the nation's capital. Unfortunately, my great friend, the professor's back went out on him, and he's in an immense amount of pain. And I will be checking up with him after the show. I told him I would call him before the show, but it was no way I was going to do that. He's in the urgent care center right now, attempting to get treatment for his back. I want you all to continue to keep him in your prayers and in your thoughts as we go along this particular evening. I miss him this evening because I really wanted his advisement, his counsel. But as we take our first break, I want you to remember Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor from undergroundprofessor.us. If you would, you go to undergroundprofessor.us, send him a note, go to Facebook to Michael Jones, the underground professor, and send him a note, a prayer, and thanksgiving for the work that he does. I really miss him. I really do. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get a word from Bridget Gabriel, who is the founder of Act for America. And it's going to set us on our course tonight to actually understand why the anti-Zionist And you're going to find out in our definitions tonight that really they're anti-God. The anti-Zionists have decided to take the reins of the UN and use it against Israel, our friend.
The best late night conservative talk show in America, TECN Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than TECN Sean and TECN Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best late night conservative talk, TECN Radio. The best late night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
From the war front to the streets of our nation's capital, men of faith, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, and Kenneth McClinton, the exceptional conservative, bring both constitutional gravitas and spiritual perspective on today's issues to the most influential Christian urban talk show, 9:05 p.m. Eastern, Thursdays. It's a new day on New Day, Black and Red.
Hey, it's Jersey Joe for the Reaver Common Sense. You can catch me every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on shrmedia.com. It's every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, shrmedia.com.
Is your PC causing major headaches? Now there's an easy way to make your computer run like new again. Introducing System Mechanic, America's #1 PC performance software. System Mechanic scans your entire PC for over 200 different types of errors. It then automatically fixes even the most stubborn and frustrating PC problems, restoring full speed and stability in minutes. Visit runlikenew.com to try it free.
Aloha, I'm here at the Hawaii Coffee Company at the Lion Cafe. Let's go get some brew and get educated. All right, we're here at the Hawaii Coffee Company Museum, and I got Sam here. Tell us about Lion Coffee and how did it get into Hawaii?
Well, the Lion Coffee founder, Jim Delano, before Lion Coffee in Hawaii existed, bought the old Hawaiian Electric building downtown. And his idea was to build a cafe kind of like on a bohemian model to invite artists and musicians and have this really cool place to hang out and drink coffee. But once he refurbished the building, he didn't have any coffee, and he had to find out where he was going to get the coffee from. He discovered this trademark, Lion Coffee, established in 1864.
Wow.
And we're standing right in front of a case of all this old paraphernalia. This is how he discovered the brand, and he was intrigued by it. He did some research and tried to contact the company, see if he could buy some coffee, but Lion Coffee was no longer roasting. And so he found the descendants from the owner of Lion Coffee and managed to buy the trademark. And so basically Lion awoke in Hawaii, and we started roasting here.
Wow, that sounds like you guys had the concept and the idea before Starbucks.
Yeah, that's right. The only thing is we didn't go international, but we do sell internationally. And our focus on our business in Hawaii is the most popular coffee in Hawaii.
Of course. Mahalo, Sam. Go to HawaiiCoffeeCompany.com and get more cool information about Lion Coffee Roasters and Hawaii Coffee Company, where we're filming this video. They have a great free tour of the roasting facility, and you can check out all their highly sought after coffees.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you back to the Exceptional Conservative Show.
You got me in a vendetta kind of mode. You tell the angels in heaven, you never.
Thank you. Welcome you back to the Exceptional Conservative Show live from the nation's capital. We certainly are not ashamed of the good news of conservatism, for it is the power of liberation. First to the Republicans and then the Socialists. You're listening tonight, Thursday night, to New Day Black and Red. We are absent the professor. We miss him dearly. We pray that he gets better. We hope we'll have a full contingency next week. For those who are at TECS, you might be able to see where people around the world are listening to us. You'll see the red dots. Don't fear, you're not being traced. But nevertheless, throughout the world, people are listening to this program now. Why are they listening? Well, I would think that they are listening. And everyone in our chat room, Miss Claudia, puts it very, very well, distinctly. 21 days, 2 hours, 39 minutes, and 26 seconds until the inauguration, noon, Friday, January 20th, 2017. 21 days is too long, Mary says. And it just might be long enough for the President of the United States. Now, I'm thinking this is what he's going to do on Martin Luther King's birthday. So you bear that out. I might be erroneous. I might be wrong. But I really believe that this president wants to recognize, as he was recognizing Cuba, with Fidel Castro still in power, and his brother, Raul Castro, taking the helm, tyrants and miscreants and murderers they are. I really believe that he wants to make Palestine not a de jure government under the auspices of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, but one that is under the auspices of Hamas, and that, quite frankly, not even Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, that he wants to make it a de facto government, thus forcibly introducing a two-state solution on his way out the door 1 week before the inauguration. And what a troubling time our nation would have. First and foremost, I was completely antithetical to the idea of Cuba being recognized. We were just a few months, 18 months away from Fidel passing away, and many of the liberators who had been waiting for Fidel to pass away were waiting to take on Raul Castro to overthrow the government. 18 months is what we waited, but in exchange for that 18-month wait, Fidel Castro got billions of dollars, and we got to take cruise ships from Mobile, Alabama, to Cuba. And like everyone says, unreal. Absolutely unreal. 18 months. Well, this particular president has made a note, I really believe has signed it and put it on the refrigerator door for everyone to see, that his intent is to defy our relationship with Israel biblically since about 4000 BC, literally since 1948. He wants to eradicate that. Now, a lot of people will say, well, how do you know this, Ken? Yeah, how are you making this? You're making this stuff up because you like ratings. You like people around the world listening to you. And I'm telling you right now, no, that's not the reason why. The reason is very simple. What happened at the UN on the 23rd of December, just last week, was intended to send a message to Benjamin Netanyahu and everyone in the Zionist state of Israel. And the clarion call came directly from the Secretary of State, John Kerry, in a speech. You cannot be Jewish and Democrat or Democratic. You can't have one and the other. It has to be either or. He did not say that you can't be Muslim or Mohammedan and Democrat. This administration did something that it said it was not doing 8 years ago. It went to the jugular vein of what Israel is all about. Israel is built on a faith in the living God. If you believe that ISIS is not Islamic, then I would gird you in the understanding that maybe Israel's not Jewish. But it is because it was a homeland for the Jews. And actually a saving grace to a desolate place. That the restoration with the amenable behavior and legislative capabilities and executive orders of our own nation, we became friends and allies, vowing to fight each other's enemies unto death. Believe me, after September 11th in 2000, who was there by our side? It was the Israelis. Who was rescuing our own members from the embassy in Egypt days before September 11th, the number 2 version under Hillary Rodham Clinton and Barack Hussein Obama? It was the Israelis. Now, I'm not going to say that everything that they've done is absolutely perfect. I don't know a nation that is. Not even ours. But I can say this to you. They've always been our friend. They've always been our ally. And as quiet as it's kept, they have been a saving grace to Saudi Arabia, who is fearful of what Obama has done with Iran. Nuclear capabilities to one of the most radical terrorist organizations in the world, the Republic of Iran. Why do I say all this to you? Ken, you're obviously just making this stuff up. You like ratings. You want to be up there with Rush Limbaugh. You got a big network now. You got great people. And so you're just doing this Alex Jones style. Let me exhibit one evidence from Brigitte Gabriel, the founder of Act for America.
As the Obama administration heads out the door, its mask is starting to come off. Those of us who cherish Israel as our most devoted of allies are outraged, yet not at all surprised, at the disgraceful decision by the Obama administration to not only abstain from the UN vote, but deceitfully devise the plan to throw Israel under the bus and champion the non-existent state of Palestine. Predictably, John Kerry, our most embarrassing and dangerously foolish Secretary of State, attempted to change the narrative with his remarkably disgraceful press conference. Kerry stated that no administration has done more for Israel's security than Barack Obama. This is coming from the inept Secretary of State who took James Taylor to France after the Paris massacre to combat ISIS by singing, "You've Got a Friend." I, for one, cannot wait for this anti-Semitic administration to walk its sorry radical Islamic pandering body out the door, and please let it hit you in the backside on your way out. Kerry went on to actually state that, quote, Israel can be Jewish or democratic. It cannot be both, end quote. Blatant anti-Semitic comments on display for all to see. But don't blame Kerry or make him feel like the Lone Ranger. He's just doing his part as Barack Hussein Obama's mouthpiece because our coward-in-chief didn't have the guts to make his true thoughts about our only democratic Middle Eastern ally known. Obama chose to sit behind the scenes and let the Egyptians do his dirty work for him. Israel protected me and my family from radical Islamists who tried to kill us in Lebanon. My parents are buried in Israel. My daughter was born in Israel. I know the values Israel shares with the United States that give safety and hope to so many and a part of the world that has none. I know the nature of the enemy Israel faces, whose evil knows no bounds. This is an enemy which uses their own children as shields after launching cowardly attacks against innocent Israeli civilians. Israel celebrates life, and their enemies celebrate death. What the Obama administration has done is so outrageous. But no matter how much damage this administration has done to our nation and its devoted allies, we, the people, are going to repair and restore that which has been sabotaged starting next month. For every Chamberlain, there is a Churchill. Barack Obama's fundamental transformation of America and its relationship with our allies has been difficult for all true patriots to endure. But now it's our time. It's our time to stand up and say, we stand with Israel. We stand with our allies. We stand against our enemies. We stand for our Judeo-Christian Western values and against Islamic theocracy. We stand for America and the ideals that made it the shining city on a hill Ronald Reagan knew it to be. Try they have, but never could the Obama administration crush the will of ordinary American patriots willing to fight for what they believe in. To our friends in Israel, you may not have the support of our current president, but you do have the support of a far more important and powerful force, the support of the American people. We at Act for America, the largest national security grassroots organization in America, are committed to standing with Israel. We vow to stand with you, support you, and fight anti-Semitism anywhere it rears its head. We are in this together, and we'll do everything we can to make sure Israel is protected and its people are safe.
Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people give credence to the fact that the election of Donald J. Trump is one of the most noteworthy news stories of the year. And mind you, Times Man of the Year, I would concur with others who have made the statement that, yeah, it is the biggest story of the year. Although I have some contempt from others that I shouldn't blockade the proposition that it is the biggest story of the year. I just think it might be the most overused one because there are so many others. But sincerely, I want you all to understand the election of Donald J. Trump, the win in Brexit, the Brexit win, the Italy win, the French turning out the communist socialist brigades and leaders in exchange for more conservative leaders. What's happening in Ireland in terms of moving to a very free market economy. The Netherlands and Denmark looking at exercising the right to return Mohammedans back to Syria since they have induced so much violent crime, including rape. When you look at Germany and the fact that their desire to open borders to 1 million refugees, quote unquote, although they are more an invasion than they are refugee, from the Mohammedan regions of the world, has opened up pure hell along the way, whether it be Hungary, whether it be Greece, Italy. Wherever they've gone, they've set the world on fire. Not in a sense of a metaphor, but in a truth. In this particular age, one of the biggest stories of the year is that the Barack Hussein Obama administration is doing everything that it can at this particular hour, even as I speak to you, to show contempt for the U.S. Constitution and to destroy the greatest ally America has ever had in the Middle East, Israel. But why? Why do we have at this hour, when Hanukkah finally connects with Christmas, and that's a rare occasion that happens, at a time period where on December 13th, others in this world were celebrating the birth of Muhammad. Why did this president choose that time period to send a salvo across the ambassadorial ship to Israel? Why did they contrive that you cannot be Jewish and democratic as a nation? The simple fact is, the only democratic nation there is in the Middle East happens to be Israel. Israel happens to be created as a homeland for the Jews or the Hebrews or the children of God. I want you to understand that the anti-Zionistic play by this administration is exactly what it appears to be, is an attack upon the religion of Judaism. It is even a greater attack upon the faith that was required to create this nation, Christianity. While there are black theologians who would run around and tell you that we're not part of that Jewish Old Testament, the bottom line is, if you get a Bible, most Bibles, you're going to have an Old and a New Testament to it. King James Version or the Geneva 1599 Geneva Bible. There's an Old and a New Testament. There's Judaism and Christianity forged together through one man called Jesus Christ. So Willie, a man who has for 8 years shown the utmost affinity for the Muslim culture, for the Mohammedan initiatives, even defying the intellect of even the most ignorant man in America by saying that the I in ISIS does not mean Islam. This administration has done everything it could do to prop up Mohammedanism, knowing that Mohammedanism is one of the most radical political terrorist arms proposing itself as a religion to the world. Now, mind you, if you wish to pray to a moon god, as Muhammad did, that's your business. But I have a problem when we have chosen to forsake our alliance with Israel simply because they're Jewish. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what it's really all about. Let me take you now, and I want you to have it in your hands. The UN Security Council, Resolution 2334, which was adopted on the 23rd of December, 2016. Now, a lot of people would say, well, wait a minute, Ronald Reagan, he was working with the PLO. Well, he was forced to by an agreement between Jimmy Carter and Israel and Egypt at that time period. Well, actually, before Ronald Reagan became president. So we were forced to begin peace talks. But I want you to understand one thing before we move forward in this intellectual discovery. The idea, and I have great disdain for my Zionist brethren who are willing to give up land and territory in order to appease terrorists. If you want to know one thing about terrorists, you can never satisfy them. They are insatiable. Kind of like a predator, or what we would call a individual pedophile. It doesn't matter what you do to them. Their goal is to destroy, to steal, and to destroy. In the case of the jihadists, it is to steal, to kill, and destroy. The objective here is very simple. Let us eradicate our enemy right before our eyes. Let them march into the sea. The only way that you will have a peace accord between the Palestinian Liberation Organization and Israel is if you eradicate Israel. Because Israel offered to give back all of the land that it had acquired in the 1967 war, 7-day war, back to the Arabs, especially unto the Palestinian Liberation Organization. And the PLO said no. Why did the PLO say no? Because their number one objective is to destroy Israel. There is no other objective by the PLO. There is no other objective by Hamas. There is no other objective by ISIS. There is no other objective by the Taliban. There is no other objective by the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a funder of Keith Ellison and a friend to Barack Hussein Obama. If they don't destroy Israel, there will be no peace. Ladies and gentlemen, let me read to you when we come back the UN resolution. I'm going to make certain that it's in the chat room. I want y'all to have it. I want y'all to read it. I want y'all to be able to tell people exactly why this official document is really, in my opinion, a gauntlet thrown down against Israel by the U.S. We'll be right back with more of the best right after these messages.
Welcome to Protecting Innocence. I'm Pastor Donovan Larkins, and we're going to share with you from a biblical view, but from also a world view of what's going on in our world. Child molesters and sexual predators are growing daily. The sex offender registry is growing in some parts of the country 40% a year. There are close to 800,000 registered sex offenders in the United States of America. Pedophiles are lobbying to legalize sex with children daily in Washington, D.C. Why would our government entertain pedophiles to gain legalization and in spite of the fact that they're hurting children? Several organizations estimate over 500,000 children will be born this year, and they will be sexually abused before they turn 18 if we do not prevent it. So here's the deal. Today's word of protection is scrutinize. Yes, scrutinize. Today's liberal society wants to tell us that to scrutinize is to be unloving, to scrutinize is to be, unchristian. Let me give you a definition of scrutinize. Scrutinize means to examine or inspect closely and thoroughly. Customers were warned to scrutinize the small print. That's an example of what scrutinize is. And today I'm letting you know that parents, you are your child's number one defense against child molesters. That means you have to do your job. That means you have to really step up your parenting. And so today's word for you parents is scrutinize. Scrutinize the relationships that your children have. Scrutinize those adults and children that seek to be in your children's life. Scrutinize, examine, determine whether or not they're good for your children or not. Sexual predators are not going to come out. Child molesters are not going to come out and say, I'm a child molester. So therefore, you have to do your job. Effective parenting will scrutinize the relationships that you have in your life, or you will scrutinize the relationships that are in your children's life. What kind of relationships? Well, a coach. Scrutinize that relationship. And I say scrutinize it to the point, if necessary, that it will be like a thorn pricking that relationship, because then you'll get to know what the true nature of it is. Don't ignore the obvious. I have a policy in my life: when someone shows me who they are, believe it. And so many children could have been prevented the pain of victimization if they just had a parent or parents visiting the school on a semi-regular basis, asking the neighbor, can I come and visit you because your son or your daughter is spending time with my daughter or my son. You know, walking into someone's home, you can really size up what kind of lifestyle they live. The computer, scrutinize what your children are watching on the computer. Scrutinize the kind of relationships they say they have on Facebook. Scrutinize is today's word of insight and authority. Now listen to this. Your child's teachers, coaches, scrutinize them. Let them know you will be evaluating their relationship with your children. Without scrutiny, a person can go bad and you won't even know it. That means someone could be good today and then decide that they want to feed off of pornography at night, and then your child ends up being the victim. So, scrutinize. Scrutiny is our word today. Parents, your relationship and your protection over your children is their number one defense against child molesters. This is not a joke. Child molesters are penetrating every avenue of our society. Church. Watch what church you go to, because let me tell you something. When you let down your guard, and when you let down your defense, the molester will be there. Be well. Be safe.
Is your PC causing major headaches? Now there's an easy way to make your computer run like new again. Introducing System Mechanic, America's #1 PC performance software. System Mechanic scans your entire PC for over 200 different types of errors. It then automatically fixes even the most stubborn and frustrating PC problems, restoring full speed and stability in minutes. Visit runlikenew.com to try it free.
Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you back to New Day Black and Red, live from the nation's capital, that's Washington, D.C. Keep Dr. Michael Jones in your prayers this particular evening. He is suffering from a back ailment. We hope that he recovers over the next weekend, as it will be a new year. We hope that in the new year he is sound and strong enough to be with us on Thursday night. As we come back from the break, I want to put a light upon the work of Pastor Donovan Larkins, and I want to thank all of those who have made contributions to our campaign to protect the innocent. And I'm encouraging you, as you're listening tonight, go to theexceptionalconservativeshow.com, scroll down on the front page, and make your donation. All you need to do is click on the phrase where it says, help us raise $10,000. That's our goal in the next 30 days, so that children will be able to, during the summer, go to the Chicago Ranch in Dayton, Ohio, and receive the care and the recovery necessary to overcome the ailment of child abuse and sexual abuse. Can you imagine a 3-year-old coming to you needing your help because someone touched her in a very inappropriate area? It happens. 80% of those cases happen to people who are related to those who did it. And in addition to that, 1 out of 5 girls are sexually abused. 1 out of 20 boys are sexually abused, or one is in each case. Would you do me a great favor? Help us get to those individuals that they might be healed and they might receive the justice that's due them. Go to the front page of the Exceptional Conservative Show and support our campaign to protect the innocent. We come back tonight and we're talking about the UN Security Council Resolution 2334, which was adopted on the 23rd of December 2016, just in time for Hanukkah and Christmas. Why? Well, guided by the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations, reaffirming inter alia the inadmissibility of the acquisition of territory by force. You see, a good liberal doesn't want you to defend yourself. And I know that people who are watching via Ustream and live stream are catching this. Those who are leaving us via Red Nation Rising, I love you. Hopefully you'll catch the rest of this on SHR Live or highplainspundit.com, hppundit.com. And as well, thank you so much for listening at 2 a.m. on the Liberty Channel on Red Nation Rising. You can also catch us on Ustream and live stream at a later time. The inadmissibility of the acquisition of territory by force. You see, the United Nations, maybe not the one that came to power in 1948, although when we study tonight, you'll find out that, yeah, maybe too. But the United Nations did not want Israel to win the 7-Day War. You see, 1967, we're talking about almost 20 years out, 19 years, in fact, out from them coming into the realm as a nation, accepted by the United Nations, created by Britain after World War II, as a place for Jews, especially those who had faced the Holocaust, to return home from the diaspora. A place of safety. A place that had been theirs since Penuel, the angel, put his hand in the side of Jacob in a wrestling match that ended with Jacob's name being changed to Israel. We'll get to that in the second hour of the show. They didn't want Israel to win the 7-Day War, and they certainly didn't want Israel to keep the spoils of the 7-Day War. They didn't want them to keep the spoils of the war against Egypt, the Gaza Strip. They didn't want them to have the Golan Heights. They didn't want them to have the Jordan Valley. You see, they wanted Israel to be defensible, yet conquerable. Defensible, yet conquerable. And so when they won the 7-Day War, now remember, all of the Arab world came against came against Israel. And Israel won in 7 days. That smarted the dictators of the United Nations. They didn't like that. And to this day, still don't like the fact that Israel can protect itself. Yes, the progressives want to see the annihilation. Now, I digress back to the actual resolution. Reaffirming the obligation of Israel, the occupying power. Now, I want you to understand this. By that one statement there, that one phrase, they are taking away the sovereignty of Israel. You see, they see Israel as the way the world saw the U.S. in Iraq, as an occupying power, simply there to stir up trouble, and they should go back from whence they came. Well, if Israel were to go back from whence it came, meaning pre-1948, that would mean simply that Israel wouldn't exist anymore. You don't have to be a wizard in the field of law to understand phrases. The term occupying, and let me get the online etymology dictionary for those who are sitting at home and trying to figure out what do you mean by occupy. Occupy means to take possession of, to take up space or time, employ someone. To take over, seize, take into possession, possess, occupy, from the Latin occupare. Yeah. It virtually means that you don't belong there. You're taking up space, you're taking up time, you don't belong there. We want you to go. We want you to leave. Thank you, Claudia. You're right. An Israeli Ren was supposed to be impossible, but they did it in 7 days. Now, I want you to understand exactly, after the reaffirmation that Israel is occupying, quote unquote, Palestine, condemning all measures aimed at altering the demographic composition, character, and status of the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967, including East Jerusalem, including Inter Alia, the construction and expansion of settlements, transfer of Israeli settlers, confiscation of land, demolition of homes, and displacement of Palestinian civilians, in violation of international humanitarian law and relevant resolutions. Do you understand what they're saying here? That although they were challenged in war and won, the lands that they occupy or have taken possession of are not theirs. And as such, they need to give them back to the quote-unquote Palestinians that did not exist until there was an Israel. Amazing, isn't it? That is like someone from the United Nations coming in and saying that we occupy the United States of America. We belong to Britain, and Britain deserves to have its settlement back, its land back, its property back. You wouldn't take that for the least bit, because as a sovereign nation, we had the right to do what we did. We rebelled, and in a revolution, we proclaimed ourselves a free and sovereign state. Do you understand that just in the first four paragraphs of this Security Council resolution, Israel doesn't exist? Mind you, Egypt proposed this at the very beginning of the week, and then they decided right about the 22nd to put it down. But someone picked up the phone with their pen and called the nations of Senegal, New Zealand, Malaysia, and got them, and one other, and got them to do something that had not been done in a while. New Zealand, Malaysia, Venezuela, and Senegal. They abstained. You see, that's a trademark of being an Obama supporter. You abstain. We'll be back for the second half of New Day Black and Red, and we're going to take a look at the history of the creation of Israel and the anti-Zionistic spirit of this administration that I fear has one goal: to make the PLO a de facto government. Imagine dealing with that on your first day of office.
When your ship comes in, I'm gonna take my God home and lean on me.
Yesterday, you went on the air. We're talking about your fake Prada sunglasses.
Yes.
Scary called me in a panic last night. I went on the air and I called them fake. They're not fake. They're real. We're gonna get sued.
Really? They're real?
Yeah. And he gave. What's the name of the company you ordered them from?
I bought it from a company called EZ. That's the letter E, the letter Z, Contacts USA.
So he goes on the air yesterday and says, "EZ Contacts. They're a scam. Ignore them."
No research.
Yeah,
Nothing.
didn't look into. I'm like, you're being a little reckless.
Yeah.
You know, even though they, I don't know if those are real Prada glasses or not. But he went on the air and said that anyway.
The opposite of 60 Minutes. Scary Jones.
Yeah. We don't know. We didn't investigate. I'm sure they're a scam.
Well, I got them for $150 lower than you could normally find them.
Are they a scam?
They're not. I looked into it. I researched it in full. I am holding legit, real Prada sunglasses.
Wow.
So
Really?
I'd like to issue an apology. I just want to say,
Of course, he got a call from the company.
from the owner, yeah.
They had lost orders yesterday because of what Scary said. People, they should make you pay what they lost yesterday. How much was that total?
I don't even know. but at the end of the day, it's like it's almost one of those too good to be true things. Yeah, it is true.
So you did your research on
I
this?
did my research. I did my homework. At the end of the day, Easy Contacts USA, they actually sell real, legitimate stuff. You have to
At great prices.
At great prices.
Can you imagine last night, I'm getting ready to eat dinner, I get a phone call from Scary. He's like, hey, you called 2 minutes?
I like to say,
I'm like, okay.
Was it 2 minutes?
25 minutes later, I'm like, all right, Scary, that sounds great, man.
No,
Hey,
legit.
yeah, thank you. All right, I'll let you go. I'll talk to you tomorrow. It's unbelievable.
Everything worked out.
All right, thank you, Scary. So Scary,
It could have been last season's. You know, sometimes they do that. Last
absolutely.
season's, whatever.
Scary accused them of the company of being a fraud, and they're not. And that was very reckless of Scary.
It really was.
Yes, Froggy.
Scary's going to turn this around at some point before it's over. He'll go, I was doing them a favor. See, at first I said it wasn't real. Now it is real. More people are going to buy from them.
I did the homework, boss. They're real.
At the end of the day, if you want to
Thank you,
designer
Scary.
eyewear,
Here we go.
Scary, if you give the name of the company one more time, I swear to God, you're fired.
you're going to kick me in the
I'm going to kick you in the balls. But, you know, I'm glad the owner did hear you. They do listen.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they heard you and they corrected you, because that's very reckless to go on there and say someone's a fraud.
But I'm excited to find out that you can get really cheap sunglasses.
Yeah,
that
no,
are
me
really
too.
nice.
What's that website again?
I don't want you to kick me in the
Okay,
balls.
Scary, one more time.
It's the letter
If you do it anymore, we're going to have to send them a bill.
The letter E, the letter Z, Contacts USA.
Okay.
.com.
Okay,
It's
thank
like,
you.
From the war front to the streets of our nation's capital, men of faith, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, and Kenneth McClinton, the exceptional conservative, bring both constitutional gravitas and spiritual perspective on today's issues to the most influential Christian urban talk show, 9:05 p.m. Eastern, Thursdays. It's a new day on New Day, Black and Red.
Good morning,
I'm Michael Wright.
and I'm Shannon Wright.
Okay, folks, that's not how it goes. I think I'm Shannon,
I
and
think
you're
so.
Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. We are The Right Way with Shannon and Mike.
Join us from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time
Live on SHR Media,
and on TECN,
where we'll be talking about all kinds of things,
from sports and politics
the food and entertainment,
to money
family,
and anything else in between.
community, holidays, all kinds of things.
It'll be great. Join us from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time.
Now, Brownells, we know you may have only one shot to harvest that trophy, so we have thousands of accessories and replacement parts to improve your chances. We know how much you love to shoot, so our Gunsmiths articles and videos will help you do more and get more out of your guns. We also value your hard work and money. That's why only Brownells backs up everything we sell with a 100% unconditional lifetime guarantee. Brownells, the world's largest supplier of firearm accessories and gunsmithing tools.
Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you back to New Day Black and Red, live from the nation's capital. We are not ashamed of the good news of conservatism, for it is the power of liberation, first to the Republican and then the socialist. I'm yours truly, the exceptional one, Ken McClinton. Tonight we're talking about America and Israel, why we have forsaken our ally, because you cannot be Jew and Democrat at the same time. I don't know why New York and Florida are not in arms at this particular juncture. You've just been told that you cannot be a sovereign nation and Jewish. You cannot be a sovereign nation and Jewish. meaning that you can only be under the auspices of a Palestine governance, meaning that there cannot be an Israel. If you have to break down what he said so that you understand what he said. And what he said is true if you are anti-Zionistic. Just saying. I want to take you to the council document as we've been looking at over the past 20 minutes. And I know a lot of people are talking about it, but haven't read it. Never seen it. So they're talking off the yang. I want you to be able to go into the office tomorrow and say, listen, I read the actual decision, Resolution 2334 of the Security Council at its 7,853rd meeting on December 3rd, 23rd, as it was adopted. I've read it, and I see here every step of the way they are blatantly saying that Israel does not exist as a nation, that it doesn't have sovereignty, that it has no right to the lands that they earned in spoil of war. And in fact, they would really like the borders of Israel to be put back to June 4, 1967. With Western Jerusalem belonging to the Jews. And I don't know how you can do that if you don't exist as a nation, a democratic nation. You can't, yeah. And the other portion being the Palestinians, East Jerusalem. Now, I want to bring your attention to point 6 in the stressing portion of the status of the document. And this is why you need to be very contemptuous of the Obama administration for what they've done here. Number 6 says it calls for immediate steps to prevent all acts of violence against civilians, including acts of terror, as well as acts of provocation and destruction. Well, the only provocation and destruction that's been justified in this document is the building of settlements in the Jordan Valley, the Golan Heights, in Gaza. That's the provocation. That's the justification for the jihadists in every branch of the Mohammedan movement to come against Israel. You see, it's not that the jihadists have done anything to Israel. It's that Israel exists, and in itself, that's enough. Calls for accountability in this regard. Calls for compliance with obligations under international law for the strengthening of ongoing efforts to combat terrorism. Well, wait a minute. If my people who are called by his name are building their houses in territory that belongs to them, in the sovereign boundaries of Israel, is not the terrorism what's being done to them? Or is the act of building a home for your own people an act of terrorism? Now, I want you to understand this. And then you will understand why over the past 8 years, there have been so many terrorist attacks within the United States of America. Because they have a shoddy understanding of what terrorism really is. Terrorism is deserving to those who are American citizens. Terrorism is deserving of those who are Israeli citizens. Did you know that Israel allows the Palestinians, quote unquote, although they're not, they're Arabs, they allow the Arabs to be citizens of Israel. There's no apartheid. You have the right to vote as an Arab. The Palestinians, quote unquote, are welcomed in only one place in all of the Middle East. And that is the place that they deem the occupying power's territory. No other Middle Eastern nation wants them. If they did, we would not be working on a two-state solution. We'd be working on a one. Now, I want you to get point 9. And this is why the words of John Kerry have to be understood. See, you're not going to get this on other radio programs. I'm going to just tell you that. This is why the TECN is so important, especially in the urban community, because they won't get this on Sunday morning. What they will get is that the Jews are starting problems, and it's not right. And what they need to do is move to one side of the land and let the Palestinians have one side of the land, and then we will have peace. Can I get an amen? Amen, Pastor. Amen, Pastor. That's it. Oh, praise the Lord. You so right. And he's so wrong. And in fact, he's dangerous, because now he has access to the minds of people who don't have this information, who aren't listening to this station. And the best way to do that is if y'all tweet this stuff out, Facebook this thing out. I don't mind taking on the enemy face to face. What I do mind is that my enemy doesn't know that he is. Number 9, urges in this regard the intensification and acceleration of international and regional diplomatic efforts in support aimed at achieving, without delay, a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace in the Middle East on the basis of the relevant United Nations resolutions, the Madrid terms of reference. I don't know why you went with the Madrid term, including the principle of land for peace. Land for peace. Remember that? Remember that the Palestinians turned that down? Why? Because Israel would still exist. The Arab Peace Initiative and the Quartet Roadmap, and an end to the Israeli occupation that began in 1967, which goes back to our original statement. They earned through war. They did not start it, they finished it. The 7-Day War. The initiative of France for the convening of all of an international peace conference, the recent efforts of the Quartet, as well as the efforts of Egypt and the Russian Federation. Be careful, Trump, of Russia, because they also have targeted Israel. There's only so far we can work with Russia on certain things. What they said in point 9 is that the world can now release every economic, every legislative, and every judicial weapon of warfare and an ambassadorial nature in the international courts against Israel. Who will stop them? Who once was the body that would stop them? It was once the United States of America. But what did we do on the 23rd? At the behest of President Barack Hussein Obama, 23 days and counting, he told UN Secretary or U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Samantha Powers, to abstain. Put your hands up like Eric Garner, like Trayvon Martin. Put your hands up and don't do nothing. Now, we know that there was a blow-faced lie from Black Lives Matter, but it's a truth from Barack Obama. His target is also Israel. Some people would be so paralytic as to say that it's because of the election. Yeah, it was the election. They hacked in, and Israel was a part of that. It's bigger than that, my friends. They do not want Israel to be a nation. If they had their druthers, they will wipe it from the face of the earth. When we come back, I'm going to talk about the history of the Jews and the Gentiles in a place the Greeks and Romans called Palestine. The Jews were there, and it was given to them by God. The Romans took it, and there hasn't been any peace since. We'll be back right after these messages.
From day's first light till night's last glimmer, your satisfaction is our responsibility. On the range or in the field of duty, you can rely on Brownell's lifetime guaranteed gun parts, tools, and supplies. Anytime, any place. It's how we've done business since 1939. Brownell's.
Want to know the best kept secret in flea and tick control? It's the money you'll save with 1-800-PET-MEDS. Save 30, 40, even 50% on veterinary recommended brands for your pet, and we'll deliver them free right to your door. And now you can get the safe and effective results of a top brand for even less with new Flea for X Plus. 4-way action to kill fleas, ticks, lice, and mosquitoes. Plus, it starts working in 5 minutes to 1 hour and is backed by our 100% happy guarantee. Call now or order online from
For the professional mechanic, the home hobbyist, or the most exacting pro shop, the Auto Parts Warehouse has the inventory, quality, and price you need to bring your projects and repairs in on time and with the most savings. From engine assemblies to flywheels, air filters, and body parts, the Auto Parts Warehouse has what you need.
From day's first light till night's last glimmer, your satisfaction is our responsibility. On the range or in the field of duty, you can rely on Brownell's lifetime guaranteed gun parts, tools, and supplies. Anytime, any place. It's how we've done business since 1939. Brownell's.
Have you heard the news? There's more to Prime than free. 2-day shipping on shoes. There are tons of movies ready to stream. It's like living in a film lover's dream. More to Prime. More to Prime.
I want to join. How much should I pay?
You can sign up for a free trial today. So let's sing it one more time. There's more to Prime. Have you heard the news?
Want to know the best kept secret in flea and tick control? It's the money you'll save with 1-800-PET-MEDS. Save 30, 40, even 50% on veterinary recommended brands for your pet, and we'll deliver them free right to your door. And now you can get the safe and effective results of a top brand for even less with new Flea for X Plus. 4-way action to kill fleas, ticks, lice, and mosquitoes. Plus, it starts working in 5 minutes to 1 hour and is backed by our 100% happy guarantee. Call now or order online from 1-800-PET-MEDS.
Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you back to New Day Black and Red live for the nation's capital. We are not ashamed of the good news of conservatism, for it is the power of liberation, first the Republican and then the socialist. Mary brings up a great, and Mary Brockman is my bouncer in chief for the Euro-Pacific Bank Limited TECN chat room, and I encourage you all to go there and join us in conversation. Claudia is in there, Miss Everyone, along with myself, as we talk on New Day Black and Red about America and Israel. And the question is God withdrawing his protection? If not, there's nothing to worry about. You're absolutely right, Mary. There is nothing to worry about. But I want us to also understand that while God has protection over the United States of America, we have allowed individuals to decimate the grace of his protection. We have allowed individuals to destroy the peace that passes all understanding. It is our responsibility, as always, to fight the good fight until the day which he returns. Whether his providence is upon us or not. Our enemy is real. He did not give us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. That power is what we should be using every single day to refute those that seek to emblazon a confinement, to take away our liberties, to snatch from us our freedoms. You see, this is a battle between the spoils of dictators and the desires of a free people who are being pointed out in this particular time period for warfare by the pen first, and then by the sword. You see, what man has created and given to Israel, they would like to take back. We need people in office, in every particular office, whom have a hedge of protection around them, to do what is necessary to remain the confidant of the only democratic power in Israel. I mean, in the Middle East, it's Israel. That they are Jewish is the reason that this administration is going after them. They are the direct antithesis to whom God wants. It's not the first time that this has happened on the face of the earth. If I may, for a moment, I want to give you some information that I want you to take with you wherever you go. And I've had to school certain of the Jewish culture about an individual named Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was president of the United States of America 4 terms, the last one, and the only one who did that. But there's a reason why I want to draw attention to him. You see, there are those who wish you to think that the Democrats have always loved the Jews. Truth be told, that is not it at all. And in fact, the Jewish culture has become a useful political arm of finance and electoral support, despite their nose upon their face. There are those who wished you to believe that it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt who wanted Israel to exist. And in fact, in 2006, in a book called Saving the Jews, Robert Rosen resurrected the idea from Richard Brightman and Alan Lichtman in their book, FDR and the Jews, that it was Roosevelt who was the hero of the Zionists. And when I say Zionist, I want you to understand what I am talking about. Zionism is merely an international movement, originally for the establishment of a Jewish national or religious community in Palestine, and later for the support of modern Israel. Now, I think Merriam-Webster does this a disservice by referring to it as Palestine, but nevertheless, there was a awful cry to create a Jewish state. Do you get me here? Israel has to be a Jewish state, lest it has no purpose. The Holocaust took place. The diaspora happened earlier than that. Jews were ridiculed, beaten, savaged by the Mohammedans since the 600s. After all of that, Britain, having been awarded the lands within the Middle East to carved out a property for a Zionist nation, a Jewish nation. I want you to have that, because there are those who in the chat row need to get this message out to people. That the intent and purposes of Israel was to be a Zionist nation, a Jewish nation, none other. And to have the President of the United States support through abstention a council document, a Security Council document from the United Nations that literally says it can no longer be Jewish if it wants our support. That's what they're saying, people. That's why Kim McClinton spending so much time. I know you all want me to do the Trump thing, and maybe I'll do it in the early part of the year if you want that. But you need to understand that this has been formulated even before we got to the point where FDR made a case for not making it happen. I want you to understand something real quick here, and I'm going to try to do this as quickly as I can because there's a lot of material here. There are those who believe that FDR wanted this nation to exist. But I want to read to you a letter from the President of the United States to the King of Saudi Arabia back on April 5th, 1945. April 5th, 1945. In that particular letter, Franklin Delano Roosevelt lays out exactly how he feels about a Zionist nation. He says, "Great and good friend, I have received the communication which your majesty sent me under date of March 10, 1945. Slow mail, so they didn't have email back then. In which you refer to the question of Palestine and to the continuing interest of the Arabs in current developments affecting that country. I am gratified that your majesty took this occasion to bring your views on this question to my attention, and I have given the most careful attention to the statements which you make in your letter. I am also mindful of the memorable conversation which we had not so long ago, and in the course of which I had an opportunity to obtain so vivid an impression of your majesty's sentiments on this question. Your majesty will recall that on previous occasions I communicated to you the attitude of the American government toward Palestine and made clear our desire that no decision be taken with respect to the basic situation in that country without full consultation with both Arabs and Jews. Your majesty will also doubtless recall that during our recent conversation, I assured you that I would take no action in my capacity as chief of the executive branch of this government, which might prove hostile to the Arab people. I want you to understand something. Barack Hussein Obama is merely picking up where Franklin Delano Roosevelt left off. After this letter, 3 years later, you have Israel. Barack Hussein Obama is saying to himself, Israel doesn't exist because Franklin Delano Roosevelt didn't want it to. Now, what Franklin Delano Roosevelt was unable to do with healthcare, I did. And what he couldn't do with Israel, and now I want to do as I take leave of office. Franklin Delano Roosevelt goes on to say, it gives me pleasure to renew to your majesty the assurances which you have previously received regarding the attitude of my government and my own as chief executive with regard to the question of Palestine, and to inform you that the policy of this government in this subject is unchanged. Unchanged from what? Franklin Delano Roosevelt did not want Israel and was not going to fight for Israel. This Zionist movement, squash it. Your good friend, Franklin D. Roosevelt, His Majesty Abdul ibn Abdul Rahim Al Faisal Al Saud, King of Saudi Arabia. But Ken, man, you already got Israel now, right? Right? See, that's just saying the things changed. Things did change. Things changed in the Truman administration. In fact, in 1952, in a speech for the conference of the National Jewish Welfare Board, Truman made it very clear where America's heart should be regarding Israel. He says, I am proud of my part in the creation of this new state. Our government was the first to recognize the state of Israel. Dr. Chaim Weizmann is an old and dear friend of mine. It was a great pleasure for me to have him stay overnight in the Blair House. I could not help but notice the many thousands of people who passed by Blair House to see the flags of the United States and the new country of Israel flying side by side. Can I want to put that quote in there? This is Truman. What happened between Delano Roosevelt and Truman? What happened was America realized that its greatest friend was not Saudi Arabia. It would not be Egypt. Its greatest friend would be a place called Israel. Individuals who understand what freedom and liberty and the fight for each is all about. I ask you now, when people talk about Aleppo, how many of those millions of men ages 18 to 25 who left Aleppo, how many of them would be willing to stay and fight for the sovereignty of their land? I'm under the impression not very many. But the Jews came from all around the world, especially Russia, with the interest of Russia, of course, to encourage them to leave, to set up in a desolate place what was once a paradise given to them by God, now a place where they would have to fight night and day to stay alive. Truman went on to say, I hope that whoever follows me in the presidency will continue to give our country's fullest support to our technical assistance program, not only in Israel, but throughout the entire Near East. Peace between Israel and the Arab states has been an important objective of our Near Eastern policy. I hope that we shall soon see the day when Israel and her neighbors will sit down at the peace table and will reach a full settlement of all their differences, so that our friends in the Near East, Arabs and Israel alike, may enter together upon a new partnership for the mutual advantage of all their peoples. The American people understand the problem of Israel. Part of our sympathetic interest in the future of Israel stems from the fact that we too once proclaimed our own independence in a ringing declaration, which is still an inspiration to freedom-loving peoples throughout the world. We too are people of diverse origins who have gathered strength from many cultures. For over 3 centuries, the best fighters for freedom all over the world have migrated to our shores and have added their talents and their strength to make our country great. Truman saw in Israel the U.S. The Israelis saw in themselves the U.S. They saw themselves as liberators, but they're being chastised even today as occupiers. I want to go real quick to the Jewish settlements portion of this. And when we come back after the break, our final break of the evening, we'll get into why Israel should never enter into a agreement to give up its lands and its territories, those that have been given to them by God, for the sake of peace. Remember, peace through strength? Strength is not giving away your territory. Strength is in protecting it. In the most recent access of data that I have, Jewish settlements established in quote-unquote Palestine, Israel, between 1993 and 1997, 1 establishment in Golan Heights, 3 in the West Bank, none in the Gaza, none in the Jordan Valley. Now that number may have increased as they are attempting to grow in population, which is what a sovereign should do if it is to defend itself, to make certain that there are people who are willing to defend the borders, increasing population to do so. But just being Jewish is enough to provoke these individuals to believe. And I want to give you some credence to this. Remember the Jews in Egypt? I'm not talking about recently helping Americans escape from the great nation during a potential hostage crisis during the Arab Spring. I'm talking about the Jews that were in Egypt when they were building the pyramids. And they were staying in a place called Goshen. And because their population was ever increasing, they became an immigration problem. You see, the Egyptians in that day were still taking care of the Jews in accord with what Joseph had agreed with Pharaoh on. And while the expectation was that they would only be there for 13, 15 years at the very max and go back home after the violent drought of 7 years, they stayed. They didn't leave. And they began to grow and grow and grow. And as such, they became a threat to the Egyptians and their ruling class. Well, I want you to understand something. The Jews will always be a threat to the rulers of the Middle East. They will always be the ones who will be looked upon as the entity causing trouble in the Middle East. Why is that? That will be the case always because they are a Jewish state. Now, their territory has always been the most marked thing to detest. But where do we get this idea of a Palestine? I mean, really? Palestine? Did it really exist? Well, the Arab League, in a statement following the establishment of the State of Israel, professed that it did. You see, on May 15, 1948, they made the assertion that Palestine was a former Ottoman Empire, or at least a part of the former Ottoman Empire. There was in it a small minority of Jews that enjoyed the same rights and bore the same responsibilities as the other inhabitants, and did not suffer any ill treatment on account of its religious beliefs. The holy places were inviolable, and the freedom of access to them was guaranteed. But I ask you today, is the Temple Mount open to the Jews? Really? It is? I doubt it. And so would they tell you. It is not. You see, the Mohammedans have cut off the Temple Mount, and they harangue those who wish to come and pray and worship at the temple. You see, the holy places are viable, and there is no freedom to access them. But the Palestinians, the Mohammedans, the Obamanites would lead you to believe that it's because they're building properties in places that don't belong to them. They're occupiers, and they must be dispelled. I think they did that once before, and that's how we got to the point where we had to create an Israel. I wish to point you in the direction of a gentleman named Hitler. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, I want to finalize some points to you and look at the Bible in terms of an understanding of God's desire. Go ahead, Claudia. You rocking and rolling up in there tonight. God's desire for there to be an Israel. And anyone, I want y'all to pay attention, Black liberation theologians, those who spent all those nickels and dimes at Howard University, School of Seminary, School of Theology. I want y'all to pay attention. You come against Israel, you come against God, and you shall suffer the penalty accordingly.
best late night conservative talk show in America, TECN Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clan. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best late night conservative talk, TECN Radio. The best late night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
That's like your clothing. You have some stuff from Shein. So today I have a Shein starting with Shein and Shein. Shein. Shein from Shein's from Shein. It is this beautiful maroon, like shiny, easily becoming one of my favorite sweaters that I own. I like this one so much more. They're just so nice. I like it. It feels nice. It's very smooth and soft. My websites, I'm always looking about the quality. I really, really love it. It's really cute. I love it. Love a good graphic tee. I really like it. I love, really like the style. I love the style. I really like it. Yeah, I love it. It's so cute. It's a romper that is beautiful. I just love it. I've been wearing this like forever.
So what do you think about ebooks? Maybe you've never read an ebook before, but you're considering giving it a try. Or maybe you've been reluctant to try ebooks because you don't want to buy another expensive electronic device. Or maybe you already enjoy ebooks, but you haven't been able to find titles from your favorite Christian authors. Whatever your situation, ChristianBook.com has the solution. Your trusted source for print books for over 30 years now offers ebooks. Our always free CBD reader allows you to read on the devices you already own without spending money on a new device. Thousands of Christian ebooks at ChristianBook.com means you can shop with confidence and choose from the titles you want. Plus, we are adding new titles all the time. Browse our huge selection of low-priced Christian ebooks the same way you would printed books, only now you can go from shopping to reading in seconds. Simply select the ebook you wish to purchase, confirm your account information, and start reading. Free samples of every ebook are available, so you can preview the book first, before you buy it. Plus, there's no lengthy app downloads and updates. Accessing the CBD Reader is as easy as going to cbdreader.christianbook.com and bookmarking the page. The CBD Reader holds your ebooks and bookmarks for you, no matter what device you're on. So, you can take your entire ebook library wherever you go and pick up right where you left off. Our customizable options make it possible to read your ebooks in different font sizes and styles. Want a large print version? You've got it in seconds with a simple click of the mouse. Already own a dedicated e-reader? Download your ebooks to your computer from your ChristianBook.com account and transfer them to your device. Try ebooks at ChristianBook.com and start reading your favorite books in seconds. Easy, economical, everywhere you want to read. Welcome to ChristianBook.com ebooks.
Even when I'm busy in the kitchen, it's important to me that the special people in my life know how much I care. I choose edible blooms because it's the perfect choice. Traditional flowers and chocolate all wrapped up in one. Edible blooms are made fresh daily using the very best seasonal produce and Belgian chocolate, all crafted by hand and delivered Australia-wide. Edible Blooms has the perfect gift for any occasion. edibleblooms.com.au.
Ignominious thing to say. And Bevan made that statement to me, and he added to it another statement that if I had not meddled with the thing, they would have had the thing settled. So that didn't help my Missouri good nature one little bit.
I need hardly tell you how much His Majesty's government deplore the state of unrest and disturbance into which Palestine has been plunged, to the detriment of the interests and happiness of every community, and indeed of every individual there.
Ladies and gentlemen, if it were not for a gentleman named Truman, Israel would not be in existence. I might be a bit excitable in that. But the reason is very simple. An anti-Zionist named Franklin Delano Roosevelt did everything that he could do, except die, to stop Israel from existing. It was under the Truman administration, at the protest of Arab nations, that there was recognition of Israel. Now, of course, we can always be fanciful enough to tell you that the reason's very, metaphorical. And an assembly and a likeness, they fought for their freedom, we fought for ours. But there were those who had been fighting since God made it abundantly clear in his scriptures, not the ones that have been perverse and considered a Quran, but all the way back to the Torah, with God. And you might note that his prophecies came to pass, so much so that it would be almost impossible to be Jesus at any other time in history than at the time that he sent his only begotten son, that he might be the propitiation for our sins. He was that exact. And in his exactness, despite what the Arab League would say back in 1948 over the creation. In fact, this is what they said. First, that the rule of Palestine should revert to its inhabitants in accordance to the provisions of the covenant of the League of Nations, which would later on become the United Nations, and that the Palestinians should alone have the right to determine their future. Self-determination, Kuji Chakalia, for all those Kwanzaa folk who are studying this cultish, barbaric, faithless, pseudo-religion. Keep your Kwanzaa to yourself. Second, security and order in Palestine have been disrupted. Oh my goodness. The Zionist aggression resulted in the exodus of more than 250,000 of its Arab inhabitants from their homes and in taking refuge in the neighboring Arab countries. Dear Lord, clutch the pearls. Third, this state of affairs is threatening to spread to the neighboring Arab. I want you to understand something here. This has always been the real problem. They made their problems very poignant for even us to understand today. This is the number one problem. This state of affairs is threatening to spread to the neighboring Arab countries, where feeling is running high because of the events in Palestine. They have always hated Israel. They have always hated the Jews. And if they could have had an opportunity, if they could have existed in such a stance where all of those Arab nations could rise up in power. Listen, they tried to partner with Hitler in Germany, and it didn't work. They were looking for someone to stand with them and say, let us take on God. And it didn't happen. You see, Truman was not going to take on God. I know a lot of my conservative brethren don't want me to say this kind of stuff to you. No, that's kind of spooky, Ken. That's let's stick to the facts. The fact of the matter is that the Arab nation, the Arab League, feared Israel. The governments, I'm reading directly to you, the governments of the member states of the Arab League and the United Nations are exceedingly worried and deeply concerned about this state of affairs. Fourth, these governments had hope that the United Nations would have succeeded in finding a peaceful and just solution of the problem of Palestine. Can I decodify that for you? Let me take out the Latin and the Greek and the Hebrew out of that one. Let me make you understand something. They wanted one state, and it was not going to be a Jewish one. And they thought that the powerful nations of Britain and the United States of America would come to pass and support them. You see, at that time period, there were two great nations within the United Nations, from which all of the wealth of the United Nations flowed, even today. Britain and the U.S. Britain was carving out the Middle East for the Jews. They were hoping that the United Nations would, under the treaties of the United States of America, say no. They had had that power under Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It was yielding under Truman. They had hoped that they would have succeeded in finding a peaceful and just solution, which is another way of saying eliminating Israel. And then in the seventh point, the governments of the Arab states recognize that the independence of Palestine, which has so far been suppressed by the British mandate. You see, they were pointing out the enemy. Their enemy was Britain. Now, you won't be able to say that today because they have a Mohammedan as the mayor of London. And Sharia law is just a few weeks away if the great leaders, conservative leaders of Great Britain, don't take back their country. You see, they were just opposing at the UN what the U.S. had done. How did you turn your back on us? Don't you know we have oil? Well, we have oil. So what? Don't you know that we could give gas products to the world? We got lots of gas. So what exactly stops you from having a Zionist state called Israel? Because we're Muslims, we're Mohammedans. And since the 600s, we have ruled Israel. Doesn't that count for something? Here's the truth of the matter. You signed up with Hitler and you lost. You Arab nations lost. And the spoils of war go to the victor. And the victor was Britain and the U.S. And Britain carved out Israel. An Israel that did not exist for almost 4,000 years. And in fact, let me take you back in scripture, if you don't mind. There's just too much here tonight. I couldn't go through everything. There's just too much history, and I hope that you all go back and use some of the resources, find out a little bit more. I want you to understand that Jacob and Esau were at war with one another. You see, Esau was pissed off that Jacob had slyly taken his birthright and slyly taken his absolute right of sovereign inheritance from him. He outwitted him. And what are the Jews known for? Outwitting people. Esau and Jacob were supposed to meet. And Jacob feared his brother. If I can take you back very quickly to Genesis chapter 32, for those who are following along at home or in the Euro-Pacific Bank Limited TECN chat room. I want you to understand that even before there was a Canaan, there was an Adam and there was an Eve. There was an Abraham in 15 who was promised. In 32 you see Jacob, who is the son of Isaac. And Jacob, who is the father of Joseph, I mentioned him earlier, long before he had his children, had to face his enemy. You see, Esau is actually the father of the Arab nations. Jacob is the father of Israel. I want you to understand that God was making it pertinently clear, even as far back as then, that these two groups would eventually come to war with one another again and again. Genesis 32:22, and he rose up that night and took his 2 wives and his 2 women servants and his 11 sons and passed over the ford Jabbok. And he took them and sent them over the brook and sent over that he had. He gave everything to his people and said, cross over the river. And Jacob said, I'm going to stay behind. If I'm going to fight Esau, if I must get into a war with my Arab brethren, I'm going to face him alone, and I will either defeat him one-on-one or I will die, but my people will be free. And God will find within my sons someone named Judah who would lead us into the great opportunity called Bethlehem. But that's fast forwarding a bit. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. The angel was Peniel. And the angel's name means facing God, face to face. Genesis 32:25, and when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, meaning that the angel was equal to Israel, or at least Jacob at this time. And the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. Genesis 32:27, and he said unto him, what is thy name? And he said, Jacob. Genesis 32:28, and he said, thy name shall be called no more Jacob. Now I want y'all to get the understanding of this, what the name Jacob meant. As its computer slows down, of course, there we go.
Strong's H 3290. Yaakov. Yaakov.
Yaakov. If you don't get anything tonight, I hope that you get this one. The term for that means heel holder, supplanter. Heel holder, supplanter. The son of Isaac, the grandson of Abraham, the father of the 12 patriarchs of Israel, was known nothing more than a thief and a sneak. And in that moment, his name was changed. And his name was changed to this great name. It was changed to Israel.
Strong's H 3478. Israel. Israel.
Israel. And if you don't know, let me assure you this. It means God prevails. You see, if you don't know, anyone who comes against Israel will surely lose. God will change your old name to a new one, and he will prevail in your life. Obama has to learn that lesson. I don't. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't learn anything tonight, if you didn't hear anything that you liked, I hope that you hear this. God bless America. It is now time for America to bless God. Good night and God bless. We'll see you on Sunday morning for an American Conservative's exploration of the inspired word of God.
In the beginning, it was called Palestine.
Real
I got a